Hi friends, Krista here. Thank you so much for stopping by Books and Jams yet again. I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with me for a few minutes. Today we are going to be talking about all of the books that are possibilities for my November TBR. There's a lot going on in November and I want to do all the things. Two main things that I'm participating in are Historiathon 2.5 and nonfiction November, but I'm also doing my own little NetGalley November. So what I have here are 4 piles of 5 books each, and we're gonna see what happens. The first pile of 5 I have already talked about. These are my Historiathon 2.5 TBR books. Historiathon only happens for the first 10 days of November. I would like to read these during the first part of the month. Let me just show you them very quickly. We have Water for Elephants by Sarah Gruen, The Red Tent by Anita Diamant, A Place to Hang the Moon by Kate Elbis, A Bridge Across the Ocean by Susan Meissner, and The Personal Librarian by Marie Benedict and Victoria Christopher Murray. So those ones I've already talked about for my Historiathon TBR. Next pile I'll talk about are my possibilities for nonfiction November. I am basically ignoring the forward prompt ideas that they have. Nonfiction November lasts for the whole month, and the whole point is to just pick up nonfiction. Try to do maybe a little more than you need to. You do not have to dedicate the whole month to nonfiction unless you so choose to. I do read some nonfiction, but it's not usually my go-to. But I have a ton of nonfiction books on my shelves that I really would love to read. So I just picked out 5 for this month, and we'll see which ones get read. The first one I grabbed is All 13 by Christina Soontorvant. This is about the Thai boys soccer team and their cave rescue. All the boys, I don't know if they fall into a cave, but it has photographs and just tells the story of these boys and the soccer team and what happened while they were in the cave and how did they get out of it. And I'm very excited about this. It did win a Newbery Honor Medal this year. I have already read her other book, A Wish in the Dark, which also won a Newbery Honor this year. She was killing it with the middle grade awards. So I'm really excited to read that one. It is middle grade, so it shouldn't take too long. Another one that I'm not sure if it's middle grade or YA, but I would love to read The Faithful Spy by John Hendricks. This is the biography, a true story about Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was a German pastor, and he had a plot to kill Hitler. So this book is told in a very unique style, which if you are following the words, style is one of their words this year. It's just going to be a biography about Dietrich Bonhoeffer and about Germany during World War II and leading up to World War II and his plan to kill Hitler. And I've heard really good things about it, and I would like to learn more about Dietrich Bonhoeffer. There are quite a few books written about him, and possibly by him as well. I haven't read any of them, so I would really like to do that. Another nonfiction that I'm very excited for. So these first 3 are kind of my priorities, and then the other 2 are maybes. But I also would love to read Warriors Don't Cry by Melba Patillo Beals. She is one of the Little Rock 9. When the Little Rock, Arkansas schools were desegregated by a Supreme Court order, she and 8 other students, other Black students, were brutally abused in a way, words and things thrown at them, and just a horrible situation that they had when they tried to just go to high school. So it's really a harrowing story, and it's her memoir of that time. There is a tiny section of pictures in here as well, which I always love when I'm reading a memoir. So I just think that that's going to be a really good one. It's probably going to make me cry, even though it says Warriors Don't Cry, but I'm going to cry. A book that will satisfy some of my wanderlust is At Home in the World by Tish Oxenreider. I used to listen to her podcast all the time, but this is just a memoir, reflections, essays almost, about her and her husband and their 3 children, and they went backpacking around the world. So I'm really excited about that. I like the way that she speaks in her podcast, and so I'm very hopeful that I will like the way that she writes as well. We shall see. And the 5th nonfiction book that I'm really excited to read is A Beautiful Work in Progress by Myrna Valerio. I had gone to a film festival type of thing a couple of years ago. It was called the Telluride Film Festival, and it showed all of these short films of just bravery and determination and perseverance in different fields of athletics. So there was a film about a man who had both of his legs amputated, and he was a I don't know the wording, but he rode bike on hard trails and was pretty just so remarkable. And Myrna had a short film in this film festival, and she is a plus size Black woman who is an ultra marathoner, which, if you don't know, a marathon in itself is 26 point something miles. Ridiculously long run. And she's an ultra marathoner, which is even farther than that. So she doesn't fit the mold of what you would think stereotypically a runner would look like, but she just talks about some of the kickback she's received from people, some of the hate she's gotten, and yet her determination to be an athlete. And an athlete can look like a lot of different things. And so in my own health journey, I feel like this will be very motivational and inspiring. And I loved her film. I loved her personality. And I just think that this is going to be so good. And I found it at a thrift store for 45 cents. I couldn't resist. The next pile of possibilities, we'll say, are 5 books that I have either checked out from the library. 3 of them are checked out from the library or on my shelves. Books that I actually have on NetGalley. So I would, again, like to get my NetGalley score of feedback up beyond 50% by the end of the year. I'm at 36. If I can read 4 or 5 books by the end of the year and not request anymore, it's possible that I can get close to that. So here are some that I have. This one was one of my anticipated reads for the year, The Night We Burned by S.F. Kosa. Dora is always aware of the line between fact and fiction. As a fact checker at an online magazine, her job depends on it. And as a woman outrunning her secrets, so does her life. But when a colleague decides to pursue a story about a murder from her hometown, one linked to a deadly fire at a cult compound 20 years prior, all of Dora's carefully spun deceptions are suddenly at risk. So I remember this now. Yeah, Dora had grown up as part of this cult and gotten out of it and didn't tell anyone in her current day life that that was part of her past. But now her past and her present are kind of merging, and she has to decide, is she going to reveal these secrets? And what will be the benefit or consequence of not revealing the secrets? Yeah, so I'm very excited about that. I have 80 Days to Elsewhere. This one I received in my Christmas in July book exchange from Sarah. This is a rom-com, I believe. Amazing Race meets Around the World in 80 Days as a woman desperate to save her family bookstore falls for her competition. So it's got that travel element plus a bookstore element. I just think that that's going to be delightful. Shadow Among Sheaves is another one on my NetGalley, and this is by Naomi Stevens. This one is a allegory of the biblical story of Ruth and Boaz. Ruth is one of my favorite books of the Bible. I love her story of just being willing to give up everything to go with her mother-in-law after losing so much, and then being so obedient, and Boaz being a man who stands up for his family and willing to protect her and do what he needs to do. And it's a beautiful love story, and I think that it could be a really cool retelling. I have After the Bloom by Leslie Shimotakahara. In this one, Lily is a mom, and she has a history of disassociation and memory problems, which have led her to wander off before. And so she goes missing, and her daughter, takes place in the mid 80s. And her daughter, Rita, starts to get nervous because she's never stayed away quite so long in the past when she's taken off. She goes to the police, but Rita doesn't feel like the police are really doing their job. And so she goes on the case on her own, trying to find her mom. She's forced to confront a labyrinth of secrets surrounding the family's interment at a camp in the California desert during World War II. So Japanese Canadian side of things. So I'm very excited about that. It sounds like it will be really good. And then another rom-com type book is The Road Trip by Beth O'Leary. This is the story of 2 exes who are forced to go on a road trip together. I'm not sure why they have to go on the road trip together, but we're going to hear their story of when they first fell in love and how the relationship came to an end, and then their situation now being on this road trip together. I have really enjoyed other books by Beth O'Leary, so I'm fully confident that I'm going to really enjoy this one as well. So those are my NetGalley possibilities. Honestly, that stack is probably my lowest priority out of all the stacks that I'm showing you today, but I'm also very excited about a bunch of those. So we'll see. It is working towards one of my goals, so it is a priority. They're just not as high of a priority, But this stack that I'm finally going to show you, these ones are most definitely going to get read throughout the month, and I'll explain why as I go through them. So first of all, we have my patron book club book for the month of November, and that's going to be The Address by Fiona Davis. Fiona Davis is one of my six authors that I wanted to read this year and give a try for. And so I included this one in one of the choices, and this is the one that got the most votes. So we will be reading The Address. This young girl has a chance encounter with the owner of this apartment building, and that chance encounter leads to her being able to get a job there, which totally changes her life. But then 100 years later, we also follow Bailey, who is also somehow connected to this apartment building. And so this is going to be set in New York City. It's going to have the dual timelines, and I'm really excited to read a Fiona Davis book. I know I've heard some mixed things from people, but I'm excited to give her a try for myself and see what I think, especially since I have 3 or 4 of her books on my shelves already. So that's my patron book club book. Then I have 2 buddy reads that I'll be doing this month. I'm going to be continuing on with my Keeper of the Lost Cities read along-ish with Amy from Amy Bowman. In book 5 that we'll be reading in November is called Lodestar. This is another chunker, but it is middle grade, and it's very fast-paced and very compelling. So I'm not worried about the size of it, but it is a chunker. And then another buddy read I'll be doing is Ordinary Grace by William Kent Kruger. I really loved This Tender Land by him that I read in January. It's one of my favorites of the year still. And so I'll be reading this with one of my subscribers, and I cannot wait to read another William Kent Kruger book. I believe this is kind of a coming of age story. It's also going to take place in the Midwest in Minnesota. The twins were playing their debut season. Ice cold root beers were selling out at soda counter of Halderson's drugstore, and hot stuff comic books were a mainstay on every barbershop magazine rack. This 1961. It was a time of innocence and hope for a country with a new young president, but for 30-year-old Frank Drum, a preacher's son, it was a grim summer in which death visited frequently and assumed many forms: accident, nature, suicide, murder. Told from Frank's perspective, 13-year-old. I said 30-year-old. 13-year-old Frank. So it's going to have a teenage protagonist. But we're learning from his perspective 40 years later, looking back on this summer in 1961. It's a brilliantly moving account of a boy standing at the door of his young manhood, trying to understand a world that seems to be falling apart around him. It's an unforgettable novel about discovering the terrible price of wisdom and the enduring grace of God. Okay, I am so excited to read this book. I have heard really, really good things about this one as well. Some people like it even better than This Tender Land. I've never been to the Midwest, let alone lived there. And so it's not going to have the same kind of nostalgia for me, but I'm a fan. I'm a fan of William Kent Kruger, and this story sounds like it's going to be really good. The last buddy read that I'm going to be doing, so the 4th book in this stack, is Winter. I don't actually own it. I'm going to listen to this one on audio. I would love to own this book, but I don't want the new edition of it. I have to look for the old edition because I am keeping the Lunar Chronicles, so I should probably put that on my search list at some point. But I am going to read Winter, 4th book in the Lunar Chronicles. It's a retelling of Snow White, and we're going to Luna in this one. We're actually going to spend some of the book on Luna, which is the moon. And it's kind of the culmination of this series. It's super long, another 800-page book. What am I doing to myself in November? But again, it's very propulsive. I'm going to listen to it on audio, so it will be a breeze to get through. And I'm very excited to finish this reread of the Lunar Chronicles. And the 5th book that I'm most definitely going to be reading in November is another chunker, but it's The Lincoln Highway by Amor Towles. I always give some of my patrons an opportunity to recommend some books for me to read that month, and I put all the choices in a cup and I pull one out, and this is the one that I pulled out for November. So I'm very excited to read this one. I really enjoyed A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles, and I participated in a Zoom chat with him that was hosted by Katie from Life Between Words at the very beginning of the pandemic, I think. I read Rules of Civility first and didn't love it. So I was hesitant to pick up Gentleman in Moscow, especially after hearing people describe it. I wasn't that interested. But when she said she was doing an author chat, I'm like, I love author chats, but I want to read the book first. So I read the book and loved it. So now I'm like, is this going to be more like Rules of Civility, or is he going to keep getting better and better with every book? I don't know, but I'm very excited to read The Lincoln Highway. So this one takes place in 1954. 18-year-old Emmett is driven home to Nebraska by the warden of the juvenile work farm where he just served 15 months for involuntary manslaughter. Yikes. His mother is long gone, his father recently deceased, and the family farm is foreclosed on by the bank. Emmett's intention is to pick up his 8-year-old brother Billy and head to California where they can kind of start fresh. But when the warden drives away, Emmett discovers that 2 friends from the work farm have hidden themselves in the trunk of the warden's car. And together they have hatched an altogether different plan for Emmett's future, one that will take them all on a fateful journey in the opposite direction to the city of New York. Yeah, I just think that that sounds really good. And I've heard from a couple people already that they think I'm going to like it. So I'm excited, but it is a chunker. So this one is a chunker. This one is a chunker. I don't know. I have a lot of... And winter is a chunker. I got a lot of big ones. But those are my 4 stacks of possibilities for the month of November. Holy moly. It'll be fun to see which ones I get to. I probably will not do any mood reading outside of these piles for the month. If I listen to an audiobook, I'm going to first try to find one of these so that I reach all of these goals. And we'll see how many. 20 books in a month is a lot, but it's not unheard of. I've done it before, but some of these are quite big, and there's only, I think, 3 middle grade in the mix. There are a couple romantic type rom-com books, which might be quicker. I don't know. We'll see. You're going to have to wait and see too. Those are my piles of possibility for November. I would love to hear, what are you most excited for in November? Are you participating in Historathon or Nonfiction November? I think there's a middle grade readathon, Believeathon that's also happening in November. I'm doing NetGalley November, which is like my own little thing. What are you doing? What are your plans for November? I would love to hear what you're most excited about reading next month. Are you reading any of these books? I mean, I'm always up for another buddy read. That always helps me to get through more books. So yeah, let's chat in the comments below. You guys know I love talking to you about books, about these books, about your books, about any other thing that you would like to chat about. And thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate you taking the time to hang out with me, and I will be talking with you in another video very soon. Bye.